Hello, and welcome to Brain Health Matters, a series of books, courses, and programs all designed to help you become healthier so your brain can become happier and stronger. I'm Kate Kunkel, and this week I'm going to be chatting with plant-based dietitian Juliana Hever. We'll be chatting about what it means to have a healthy weight and how to achieve it. But you may be wondering, what does that have to do with a healthier brain? Well, studies have shown that a high BMI, or body mass index, which is our weight to height ratio, is linked to slightly lower brain volumes. That's one issue. But more concerning for many people, especially as we age, is the waist to hip ratio. High BMI and high waist to hip ratios appear to correlate to lower gray matter brain volumes in people who do have that as opposed to people who don't. Why is this important? Because gray matter in the brain contains most of our brain's nerve cells and include brain regions involved in self-control, muscle control, and sensory perception. That can mean that it's more difficult to do the very things we need to be able to do to keep our brains healthy. It's a big circle, like making good dietary choices, exercising, and even learning new things from sensory input. I'll be including links to the research and to an article I wrote on the topic in our show notes. But for now, stay tuned as we tap into the mind of Juliana Hever to find out how we can avoid those problems and enjoy a healthy, energizing weight for life.
You have 86 billion reasons to go vegan, and they're all resting right between your ears. That's right, 86 billion neurons that make up the master controller we call our brains. And while they're in control, our lifestyle choices determine how well they work, and that means we must nurture and protect them. The best way to do that? With a whole foods vegan diet that nurtures not just the physical, but also the emotional, mental, and spiritual brain. In the vegan brain, you'll learn how whole plant foods can nurture the healthiest version of yourself, and, perhaps more importantly, how your choices can reduce suffering for countless animals and help create a more compassionate, sustainable world. The Vegan Brain Second Edition also includes nutritious recipes and meal plans so that your journey towards a kinder, healthier future will be easy and delicious. Available in ebook format on Amazon.
Welcome back to Brain Health Matters. I'm Kate Kunkel, and joining me today is Juliana Hever. Juliana is a passionate and leafy green loving author, registered dietitian, and fitness expert. She's also a best-selling author of books including the Choose You Now diet and lectures and counsels with the goal of educating and guiding people towards optimal health. Today, Juliana joins us to share the incredible healing and energizing power of a whole foods, plant-based diet so that you can achieve and maintain an optimal, healthy weight. Welcome, Juliana.
Thank you so much, Kate. It's so nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you as well. And I'm so excited, but I have to ask you, why the title Choose You Now?
Yes, thank you for asking that because it's a real good question. So I've worked with people for like thousands of people over almost 19 years now. And I feel so privileged to have that opportunity to connect with people and to understand. And I went in there with here's how you eat, and this is the nutrition, and this is the stuff I was taught in grad school and in clinicals and all that. But I realized that the conversations were way beyond just the nutrition and the diet and even the recipes and the food. That's all great. That's all in my books and everything. But what I've realized was in these beautiful conversations where I got really intimate and deep with my clients, I realized that there's so much more. There's a huge chasm between knowing what to do and executing. And we live in this insane society. I call it the modern day trifecta of overabundance, where we are biologically primed to eat as much calories as we can for times of survival. And yet we are here in times of abundance. And the second part of that trifecta is this incessant temptation. Everywhere we have junk food 24/7 and everyone's doing it. And the third piece, is that it's normalized. And so you're like the odd person out if you're saying, no, I'm not going to have dessert, or no, I don't eat, red meat, or whatever it is. And so what I've beautifully uncovered with all these conversations is the behavioral component, the emotional component, the psychosocial. How do you navigate this really difficult environment? And so I realized that it's all about, being in this moment, and that whole that idea that everything happens right now. That's the choose you now. But it's also the choose you part is especially women, we're always taking care of everyone else and worrying about everything else. And like, we forget to take care of ourselves. And you go back to that whole idea of when you're taking off in an airplane and they tell you, if there's an emergency, you put your oxygen mask on first so that you could then help everyone else. That's the idea, is you have to be your wholest self, your healthiest self, so that you can be your best self for everyone else and everything else around you.
Oh, that is so perfect. I agree 100% because I also deal with my brain health clients. And a lot of my clients happen to be caregivers. They don't eat properly, they don't sleep properly, and they forget that they can't look after anybody else until they look after them, right? And diet, of course, is a huge component of that. And you're such an advocate for and an ambassador for the healing power of plants. You help so many clients overcome so many things like sugar and food addictions and overcoming chronic diseases. I'd love to tap into your brain on all of these, but obesity and diabetes are prime in my concerns because they're risk factors for developing dementia. So how do you work your magic for weight loss? Because so many people are struggling with it. Like you said, this overabundance and too much information.
Oh, there's so many complicated variables in there. Absolutely. And, this is the first time in history where there's more people that are overweight than underweight in the world, in developed and developing nations. So it's kind of a unique time that we haven't navigated quite yet. And it's just getting worse and worse. And the availability of all these hyperpalatable foods and the food industry, there's so many layers to this. It's just endless. But again, it comes back to like, what do you want? And so what I've learned, again, I have a whole food plant-based diet I think is extraordinary because it's literally a one size fits all approach to handling everything. It improves immune function. It can actually, it's the only diet ever shown to reverse type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. And it's associated with all sorts of wonderful health benefits. And you don't even have to be perfect. It's just like eat more plants, eat less animals and hyper palatable, highly processed foods. That's as simple as the message that I would love to just, if you leave here with nothing but that will change your life. Eat more fruits and vegetables and plants, vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, mushrooms, nuts, seeds, herbs, and spices in infinite tasty combinations. But so there's the diet component, but really it's the how do you make it happen? That's the hard part for most people. I mean, I have clients that are dietitians and coaches and psychologists because they know what to do, but they don't do it. And so what I offer is the accountability. And I have a lot of mindfulness tools. And I could say that honestly, the hardest lesson I've had to learn as not only a dietitian, but as a mother and as a daughter and as a friend is that no matter what I say or do or present, the person has to want it. You could lead a human to healthy, but you can't make them eat. So until they want it, you can't do anything. And I've had this many, many times, beg, cry, here's a article, here's a documentary, here's a this, a that, or this. They have to want it. So I wean out the people that approach me. A lot of people approach to work with me. I'm like, well, you have to want this. Are you ready? Because I will love you all the way through it, but I will not. It took me at least a decade to learn. I will not try to change people or convince anyone. I'm not going to convince you that you need to eat this way. I'm not going to convince you, none of that, because it's not going to help. It's bumping my head against the wall. So yeah, first I make sure that they want it. And then we do mindfulness techniques. There's a whole process that I've unleashed with like how and why and the deep, deep stuff. But I love my work because I feel like diet is the language that I use or the tool that I use to dig into life. And like, this is where the stuff comes up. Like, you don't want to eat healthy because you don't feel like you're worthy, or, you're in an abusive relationship. I work with a lot of people like that. And it's because food is not just nourishment. It's our relationships. It's our culture. It's our history. There's so much depth and layers to why and how and when we eat. So I get into deeper stuff. And that's what I love. And that's where the magic happens. So it really is a much deeper thing than here's a diet. I refuse to give a diet plan.
I love that you do so much with mindfulness because that's my first thing too. Mindfulness is because you have to pay attention to what you're doing.
I mean, that's what's so interesting is that we are so primed and socialized to take on these external ideas. Like we're socialized, like eat every 2 hours, breakfast is the most important meal, like all the things that we've been indoctrinated with. You need milk, otherwise you're going to lose your teeth and your bones are going to dissolve. These things that are so deeply embedded in what we think is truth. And we have to kind of unpack all of that stuff because it's not necessarily all true. And like, there's so much more to it. And you have to make it sustainable for you. So like, what's going to work for your life? Like, you want to create as little friction as possible to make this something sustainable and accessible that you are creating. So I co-create this lifestyle transformation with my clients so that they could have the most success over the long run.
That I love that co-creating. That's a beautiful idea, because that gives people a sense of control, right, over their own destiny, because you're creating together rather than just being told what to do or eat or whatever.
We are quite literally what we eat. We literally take in the environment, the minerals from everywhere, all the vitamins, everything is coming from outside, and we metabolize it, we digest and absorb it, we excrete what we don't need, we keep what we need for later. Our bodies are absolutely brilliant. And so, but that is so powerful, because you are quite literally what you put at the end of the fork, but you get to decide, you get to choose every day and every time you eat what you're putting into your body that's going to literally become you in not too long of a future.
First thing, obviously, that you deal with clients is helping them see what their goal is and find a way to achieve that. That's your plan, right? You're putting a goal together. For many people, that's going to be, I just want to lose weight, right? Because that's such a cultural thing. The way they get there is where you come in to help them do it in a healthy way and that it stays off. I think the subtitle in your book is about the last weight you have to lose or something like that.
Lose weight for the last time. Yep. Get off that roller coaster.
Yes, people do it over and over again, and that's also unhealthy. Yes,
it is, but it's even more so than physically harmful or risky. It's not that it is, but it's more damaging emotionally, and it's frustrating, and it leads to like poor self-esteem and frustration. And I mean, I work with people that are really desperate. They really feel like they feel like they're broken. And my biggest message to everyone is, you're not broken. Even it's so rare that there's some hormonal condition leading to excess weight or obesity. Even I work with most of my clients are perimenopausal or postmenopausal, where they think, well, it's just my menopause, I can't do it. No, because even the small population where there is a metabolic thing, that is solvable, that is fixable. So it's not that you're not broken. It's the food, it's the diet, and it's the food, and you get to control it. So it's getting back to like how you control it, what's working for you, and how do you thrive and succeed by choosing the right foods and the right plan for you.
Help people figure out what they're like. Do you help them figure out what an ideal weight is? Like, do you have measurements, or is it kind of based on what size they're hoping to fit into?
All of the above. I do go objective. I mean, this whole movement of health at every size and everything, I think is so bad. It is ruining healthcare. And like, doctors can't talk about it with their patients, but there is abundant literature associating excess adipose tissue with chronic disease. Period. End of story. You cannot be healthy and have a lot of adipose tissue. You're at higher risk you can, if you're lucky, but you're at a higher risk, much higher risk for things like a lot of cancers actually, and obesity, diabetes, and all the things. So there's definitely association. So I go back to the science. So there's objective formulas. And the one that I always land on, I use is the Hamwe formula. And that's just a way to measure, like, based on height and gender, your ideal body weight range. So it's like, let's say like me, I'm 5'4". And so I should be 120 pounds plus or minus 10%. So that's a big window. And so within that big window, so I tell my clients, here's your window. And then the goal is to target the middle, aim at the middle. And then as you get to that goal weight, then you go, I actually could go a few more pounds, or, oh, actually I feel a little better in my, with my whatever, in my clothes or whatever at this weight, or because of my face, whatever it is. So that there's room, a lot of room, but I use that as the healthy baseline parameter. And that's where we start.
Sugar. I want to talk with you a little bit about sugar, because I find with my own clients that is such a hard addiction to overcome. And I saw it in your bio that's one of the things you help people deal with. How?
Well, honestly, it's not the news that everyone wants to hear, but it's the sugar that's addictive. It's not you. It's not like these people tell me, oh, I'm a sugar addict. No, you're not. It's the sugar itself that's making you want it. It's just like when you eat it, you want it more. And the more you have it, the more you want it. What I've noticed that is shocking is that one hit of that will give you a week's worth of cravings and appetite increases. I know, it's shocking. So, but the good news is, if you get it out of your system, and I've witnessed this and I've walked people through this thousands of times, it goes away. you'll never look at a cookie and go, ew, I'll never want that. You'll still go, ooh, that would be good, but it gets easier. And I was in my own N of 1 experiment way back when, because I wasn't even trying to get off of sugar, but I was the biggest sugar junkie, like obsessively so, tons of candy and cookies and ice cream, everything. But I changed my diet to whole food plant-based diet once I had my baby and my first daughter. And I just wanted to change my diet, and everything transformed with my health. So then I started using whole food sweeteners, just naturally. I got rid of the artificial sweeteners. And then all of a sudden things got sweeter and sweeter. And that now, even on my birthday, I don't want cake. I'd rather have more of whatever else, because my palate shifted so much. So the good news is your palate will shift if you give it time. And the best way to do it, the easiest, least painful way to do it, is dive in cold tofu. Just say, I'm not going to have sugar, give it time, do all the other things that are loving and take care of yourself and soothing and exciting and fun and entertaining to distract yourself as it gets easier. And then it'll get easier and easier and easier. And of course, it's helpful to not have it around, but most of my clients have families, and the families want to eat that, and they're not in this with them. So you're going to have to deal with the world. We can't live in a bubble. So unfortunately, I can't take my clients out of a bubble, but the good news is I want them to learn how to navigate it in the real world.
That's really good, because I realized when I went whole foods plant-based as well, that sugar just did not appeal to me at all. I don't want it. I just, there's nothing out there that makes me want to have sugar.
Exactly. It's amazing, because if you would have told me this a few years ago, before, I'd be like, there's no way I will never want that. There's no way. But I could literally sit there with a piece of cake and be like, oh, it doesn't even look like I could. Ugh. The other thing I really focus on, one of the mindfulness techniques that I apply that's very helpful, is really, again, the awareness. It's when you're eating your whole food plant-based, or eating really healthy and everything's going, and you have a few days behind you, you feel great, and really marinate how great you feel, your energy and your sleep and your everything feels good. And then if you have something off the plan, something hyper palatable, highly processed, whatever, you notice the difference. And your GI tract. So if you really focus on how good you feel when you're not, and how crummy you feel when you do, that helps make that decision next time it comes around.
I love that. That also helps then when you're making other decisions, even about exercising. So when you just said, once you get off that addictive kind of food, then you feel better and you want to focus on it, but that also makes you want to do other things, right? Like exercise.
Yeah, so many of my clients are overwhelmed. They're I can't believe how much energy I have. My husband's calm down, just cleaning their house and reorganizing this, and can't get enough exercise. It's what's so funny is I always say results are typical, because what I was taught as a healthcare professional is that, people don't get better. People don't get off their medications. You just want to mitigate the progression of the disease. Well, no, that's not true. I see the drug commercials that say results are not typical. Results are typical. People heal, they feel better, their energy soars. Everything gets better when they switch their diet. And diet is the number one cause of early death and disability, which is so empowering. It is the number one thing you can control. And if you do control, will change your life.
Absolutely. I love that. Yes, we do have control over that. The other thing you talk about is that you can manage, or actually, I know that we can reverse dementia with diet. I know we can do that. And you also can do other reversals. A big problem is autoimmune disease and diet. Tell us a little bit about how you help with that.
Well, again, one size fits all approach. That is a very inflammatory, most disease states are based on inflammation, right? Obviously, there's lots of mechanisms at play, but one of the main mechanisms is inflammation. And the most anti-inflammatory foods are whole plant foods. So you just flood the system with anti-inflammatory properties. And the flip side of that same coin is you're replacing the foods that are pro-inflammatory. Sugar, animal products, lots of processed foods are really pro-inflammatory. So you're getting two sides of the same coin, which is all just going to create this very wonderful environment in your body. So systemically, you can heal from all of these things.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about kids. You have children. Thank goodness they're yours, because that means they're getting a good diet, a good start in life. But so many children are not. And I'm a little frustrated. I have 3 grandchildren, and when I stay with them, I see that they're starting their day with sugar pops or something like that. And my heart breaks, because I know that it's affecting their energy. One is kind of like ADHD, he's got all kinds of issues. How do we convince families the importance of this for their kids? Because there has to be we have to stop this treadmill before the kids even get on it.
Again, I won't convince anyone. I couldn't even convince, honestly, my kids are, well, now my daughter just went off to college, which is insane to me. But my son is still in high school, but he lives with his dad and he feeds them awful food. And I see it, but there's nothing. Again, remember I said the biggest lesson, the hardest thing I've ever had to learn as a mom, daughter, and as a dietitian is that no matter what I say, like my son knows what I do. He's no, obviously, but he's in football and his coach is like, no, you need protein, you need meat, you need this. And he's eating it. And I could see, I mean, obviously he's not healthy right now and it kills me with my baby. But again, you could lead a human to healthy, but you can't make them eat. That said, that's my own personal drama, right? Everyone has that. But I work with families all the time. I won't try to convince anyone. However, if you want it, here's what we do. You create, first of all, the most important thing is role modeling. No matter what you say, your children are watching what you're doing. And if you are role modeling healthy behaviors, there at some point it's going to penetrate. You know, like my daughter went off the rails and came back because she watched me and she knows and she wants to feel good. And she's, you know, so hopefully that'll happen with my son too. But that's the most important thing with people scientifically. The other thing is, ideally, this is what happened with me and my ex-husband, is that we weren't on the same page. And that's what's so hard, is like, you have to be on the same page. Otherwise it can be very frictionful in a house. So if you are on the same page, or at least you can make compromises, then you have the healthy foods available. You get your children involved. You take them to have them pick a recipe, have them help you cook, get into a garden, inspire them with, you know, growing their own food, learning about the food. You can, you know, I used to go to classrooms and I'd make like a rainbow smoothie, or like you make it fun and according to their age and where they are. But the most important thing is you have to role model it. You have to ideally have those foods, make it a big deal instead of being like, oh, I'm eating my broccoli, but you get to have the ice cream. It's more like, oh, this broccoli is so delicious. But you can't have any because this is my broccoli. Like it's all the little tricks that you can pull. But again, you can't convince someone. And that's the hard, that's the only challenge. Other than that, it's easy. You have delicious, yummy food. You have health promoting food. You talk about it, you role model it, and boom, everyone's on the same page.
So you have recipes in your book. Tell us what kind of recipes you really like to share with people. Something that might be easy. Like I hear all the time from people, I don't have time to cook. I can't do plant-based. It takes so much work. How do you address that?
There's so many layers there. So I've now published 9 books and hundreds of recipes. And the funny thing is, I like the simplest, plainest. I hate having to go off my comfort zone and come up with creative things, because I do recipes from around the world. It's like I've taught in Thailand. I've taught all over the world. I just got back from teaching in Brazil. There's all the different cuisines from around the world and so many amazing options. But I was never trained as a chef. When I got out of grad school and I got my first book deal, and they're like, okay, and by the way, you have 6 weeks to write this. You have, and it's 150 pages and 50 recipes. And I'm like, recipes? Like I could talk about physiology, statistics, medicine, but like, I don't know how to cook. What are you talking about? But I had 6 weeks. I'm very competitive. I'm up for a challenge. I had 2 toddlers and I learned how to cook. So that if I could do it, anyone could do it. So that's the first part, is that there's so many delicious, simple meals. Like you could take rice and beans, and if you add the right things to it, which could take 3 minutes, you could have an amazing meal. I do a lot of recipes on my social media, and I just published a 2 or 3 ingredient meal where I cooked up a spaghetti squash, scraped it in a bowl, poured on some oil-free marinara sauce from a jar, and I added some basil, which that's optional. Like that's so easy. So you could keep it simple. I like to keep it simple, just because I publish these books and have to make more intricate recipes. I also try to keep most of them as simple as possible. But I also tell everyone this: you've learned a certain thing. Most of us rotate between 1 to 2 different breakfasts, 3 to 4 different lunches, maybe 5 or 6 different dinners in a week. Maybe that's like, just find 10 new recipes that you love. And once you find the recipes that you love, it becomes second nature and you don't even have to think about it anymore. And then you could add things in. But it's like learning a new language. There's a learning curve when you're changing your thinking. So I always say, go back to what you know. We all grew up having spaghetti with, marinara sauce. Or we all grew up with like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, that's plant-based. Or, like a rice and bean burrito, or just go back to things start there. Keep it simple. It should be simple. You don't have to be a chef or gourmet or complicated or expensive. It could be as simple, and ideally the simpler the healthier too. But just learning how to like navigate some spices or some seasonings or some it's so much easier once you just practice, and just like anything, it just practice, practice, practice.
Thank you for that. I feel that so strongly that we don't need a lot of time. I make lots of dinners. I cook every night because I live in Ecuador, and there really aren't a lot of
Oh,
vegan restaurants here on the coast. It's all fish and everything. So I mostly cook at home. And even if I'm really, really busy, I just go in and, like you said, rice and beans and a bunch of spices, some onions, some mushrooms, throw them in there. It's all good. It doesn't have to be fancy. And people say, yeah, but there's no variety with vegan cooking or plant-based. They don't like, is meat and potatoes variety? I don't know.
oh my gosh. So I have a list. Can I read you my list?
Please.
I'm going to read this list because this is like, there's no limit to variety. Okay. So I'm just going to, let me pull this up because I love doing this. It's so fun. Okay. So what do you eat on a plant-based diet? Okay. Pots, pans, plates, power bowls, soups, salads, sides, sweets, stews, stir-fry, stacks, scrambles, skewers, sushi, sauces, sautés, sheet pan, slaws, steaks, stuffed veggies, chilies, chowders, casseroles, curries, lasagna, loaded potatoes, loaves, pastas, panini, paellas, pancakes, pilafs, pizza, polenta, pestos, puddings, pot stickers, purees, baked barbecue, biryani, burritos, burgers, hummus, dips, dressings, wraps, rolls, ramen, risottos, roast tacos, tostadas, toast, tofu, tempeh, trail mix, tarts, tagine, dumplings, fajitas, masalas, kebabs, quiches, wings, ratatouilles, and so much more.
I know there's so much we can do. And I'm actually, my husband has switched with me, except for when we go out, then he'll eat something that I wouldn't, but he's mostly like 95% plant-based now. And he said he was almost 60 when I met him. So he'd had a whole life of eating this way. And he said, I've never tasted so many different flavors in my life since you went this way and you started cooking, because it's so easy with spices, and you want to try more different vegetables because you realize how awesome they can taste. We always say
it's almost like it pushes you past your comfort zone so that you're all of a sudden, oh, I guess I can explore and have a whole plethora of flavor and textures and deliciousness. It's infinite.
Exactly. For the best thing that I ever invested in was an air fryer.
Oh,
honestly,
yeah.
With the Brussels sprouts, and like, it just opens up a whole new world, and 20 minutes and it's done. Everything's done.
So good. Yeah, I love that.
Juliana, this has been a treat and a treasure. How can people work with you? Are you taking new clients?
Yes, absolutely. When someone really wants this, I love to help people. So whenever I'm available, yes, I'm available. And anyone can find me at plantbaseddietitian.com. And everything's there. I'm all over social media, and you can reach out there or just via plantbaseddietitian.com.
Oh, thank you so much, Juliana. And viewers and listeners, thank you for joining us on this wonderful and active conversation about eating plant-based to be a healthier you. My guest has been Juliana Hever, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Brain Health Matters. I'm Kate Kunkel, and I hope you've enjoyed learning from Juliana Hever as much as I did. Juliana's contact information is in the show notes, along with the research about the relationship between weight and brain health that I mentioned at the beginning. And remember, there are many more episodes of Brain Health Matters, along with the latest brain health research on our website at brainhealthmatters.today. And if there's a topic you'd like to learn more about, let us know. We'll see if we can't find someone to come on to talk about it. And your help getting the word out is very much appreciated. Subscribe, write a review, or share our podcast with those who can use some help with brain health. Thanks again for joining us. And until next time, remember, it's never too early to look after your brain, but it can become too late. Now is the time to start.
Brain Health Matters is brought to you by The Musical Brain, Book 3 in the Healthy Brain series. Enjoy the fun and easy practices in this book to improve your memory, sharpen focus, and master your mind with the healing power of music. Available on Amazon everywhere.